Raw Hokum for the Boxing Voice. I'm delighted to be here again with Eddie Hearn. How are you, Eddie?
Doing good, thank you. Nice to be down here. Looking forward to Sunday night at the O2.
Absolutely. Normally, I'm sure you prefer the fighters lift the roof off the venue rather than it happened before, but we are a go for the O2 Arena.
Yeah, interesting seeing the videos going around during the storm, but went down there yesterday, all good to go for Sunday, and yeah, hopefully Lawrence can remove the rest of the roof on Sunday night.
Did you have a backup venue in mind when you saw
Not
those
really.
images?
I mean, you start to think you've got like a week to go. It's not the easiest thing to do. We would have found something, but obviously the O2 for me is the best venue in the UK, so we would have been gutted to lose that venue for that night. But the fight would have gone on somewhere. But thankfully, it's been on at the O2.
Absolutely. Judging by the sound of those thunderous punches Lawrence is putting out there.
Well, I did see the Polish team were watching. Now they've gone.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hang around either, if I was going to be on the end of it. I mean, but that said, Slag, if that's how you pronounce it, dangerous fight for a voluntary.
Yeah, the Polish media sort of couldn't really understand why we chose him as a voluntary defence. The answer was because I rate it. I want a real fight. Like, we keep talking about how good Lawrence Cody is, but if you don't fight elite opposition, how can you back it up? And if Lawrence Cody is as good as I believe he is, then he should be knocking people like that. I think he can knock out everybody in a division. But to improve and to get yourself ready for a Bradis or someone like that, Sislak is like the perfect guy. But they're coming to win, and they truly believe they can win on Sunday night.
Absolutely. I mean, is it fair to say Lawrence is a long way off from being a household name?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about household names, there's not many household names. So it's a strong tagline. I mean, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and then beyond that, of course, Amir Khan from his various achievements over the years. But Lawrence Okolie is a British world champion who I believe can win and unify and become undisputed in the division and move up to heavyweight and win a heavyweight world title as well. So I kind of feel like he got a lot of stick in the early days of his career because he was having to take fights beyond his time, and he was sort of adapted in those fights. Times he might hold or be a bit awkward, but he was doing what he had to do to win those fights. Now under Shane McGuigan, he's becoming a lot more exciting. He's punching more freely. He's willing to stand and trade at times as well. He's really exciting to watch. And when you've got a guy that can switch your lights off with one shot, again, like you're going to see, I think you're going to see a brutal knockout on Sunday. And I think that Lawrence's momentum is starting to really grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people forget that he had 40 amateur fights.
Exactly.
Or so?
And look what he achieved. Won the European medal, went to the Olympics. So he's still a baby in that respect.
I mean, one of your other fighters on the card, the Gallia fight.
Yeah.
What an amateur pedigree. I know when we last spoke, you said you won't try and get him to do what Lomachenko couldn't. If he looks great in dismantling a tough fighter in his first fight, would you have second thoughts?
I think the second fight is too early. I think when you're making an investment like that in a young fighter, you've got to get it right. And I feel that Lomachenko had to do that because he was a Ukrainian fighter coming into the US market, and he had to really do something outrageous. Galal is already doing something outrageous, but to put him in with Julio Cesar Martinez in his second fight, just for me, wouldn't be right. Cesar Martinez is fighting Chocolatito next week at super flyweight. There is a chance after a while that flyweight world title could become vacant, and if it does, maybe after 4 or 5 fights, Galal could slot in. But everything will depend on the fight. I mean, Bautista looks like a strong, fit kid, and he won't stop for 10 rounds. So Galal's either going to have to take him out or fight at a high pace for 10 rounds, and that's probably the hardest thing about this assignment. It's not that he shouldn't have the skills to deal with this kid, because he will, but what happens when it goes 8, 9, 10 and this kid keeps on coming? That's what makes it exciting. So much more exciting than watching him fight a 6-rounder against a bloke that's got absolutely no chance. So he should really be applauded, I think.
Absolutely. But what about, if not Martinez, because that is a very tall order, if there was another champion looking weak? I mean, it's not like Dalakian, 34, which is old for a flyweight.
They're all good fighters, mate. I mean, it's hard down at that division because sometimes it hasn't been the most glamorous. Now it's actually more glamorous, but it's tough. Like, look at the pedigree of the fighters. Even Dalakian, I know he's 34, but great fighter, Chocolatito, Estrada, Franco, Jesse Rodriguez, Cesar Martinez, Rungasai. Like these people, they're beasts. But how good is it for Galao that you've got, I just mentioned 6, not household names, but 6 big championship names in boxing that over the next year or so he could be ready for.
Sonny Edwards is going to be annoyed you didn't mention him
Sonny
again.
Edwards, yeah, I think I rate Sonny Edwards really highly. It's just, I don't know why. I think it's just promotion. I don't put him up there with Estrada and Chocolatito and Martinez because I don't think he's been seen enough. But he could beat all those guys. I give him the credit. He's a really good fighter.
Mm-hmm. And Jordan, he didn't bunk off this press conference.
Yeah.
Good to see him here.
Yeah.
If he gets through Belfry in impressive fashion, look to put him in the mix with the numerous featherweight. I mean, the division's upside down now.
Yeah, I think that Jordan is the kind of talent that I just want to see him get in the ring on Saturday. He's had the worst luck over the last few years. I just feel that with Jordan Gill, if he beats Gurphy on Sunday, which is going to be a really tough fight, he should just really start to put the accelerator down. Do you know what I mean? And just really start to go for it. Whether that's moving up to a final eliminator, whether that's just one defence, then fighting for a world title, because he's in his prime. And this is a massive fight for him. I'm so pleased to see him get his opportunity. And a tough fight against Gurphy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One other fighter, Anthony Fowler. Yeah. He's previously mentioned Felix Cash, and from what happened at Ali Pali, obviously he was down a couple of times and he was probably in serious trouble in the final round. Do you think he'll fancy that even more now?
It's a great fight. I mean, look, Fowler's already proved that he's willing to be involved in the big fights, and the fight between Fowler and Felix Cash is a great fight. European title. Anyway, Fowler wants to be in the big fight. It's a good fight for him on Sunday. Another Polish fighter, very, very tough, never been stopped, good record, and it'd be interesting to see how Anthony can adapt to the bigger guy. Liam Smith is a world-class fighter, and he come up short there, but I'm looking forward to seeing him at middleweight.
Would you make that fight with Cash?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think he's a great fight, and I guess coming off the Denzel bench, no one really wanted to fight Felix Cash, and then he comes back after a long layoff, gets dropped, and just make people a little bit more keen to fight him. So if Fowler wanted to fight Felix Cash, I love that fight. And like I said, Fowler's already proved he's there for the big nights and the big fights.
I can just ask you about the big heavyweight scene. I'm sure you're bored of being asked about them. So we know Fury and White is happening, but the real big heavyweight clash that everyone wants to see more than any other is you against Frank Warren.
Really?
Are you not going to gate crash the press conference?
They've made it quite clear they don't want me there.
But the fact they don't want you there makes it more fun.
Yeah, no, listen, I'll let them get on with it. I think you've got Tyson Fury's done a media blackout, and Dillian White's in Portugal, so it's a good fight. I'm there to help Dillian in any way. We've worked with him for 6-7 years. I just want to see him win that fight. So we won't be involved with the show, obviously, and promotionally, but we'll be there for any help that Dillian White needs.
Do you think that sells out Wembley in April?
If it's priced right, yeah. I think it's a big fight. I mean, Fury's never been a ticket seller like AJ, but he's a big name. I mean, and it's a good fight. Just you've got to get the pricing right. That's key. If it's in line with the AJ prices, then yeah, I think it could sell out.
On the matter of AJ, obviously there was the whole Fury step aside and what have you has been discussed enough. But just wondering, you as a team, did you have serious discussions about foregoing the rematch? The reason I ask that is because with all this talk of a new trainer, you look at even the great Lennox Lewis, he needed about half a dozen fights with Emmanuel Stewart before he became the polished champion that we remember him as. In fact, his first couple of fights, he looked very sloppy under Emmanuel Stewart. Has that sort of thing been discussed with him?
I'll flip it the other way and say, I feel like you can't really win. Do you know what I mean? On one side, a lot of things you said, very sensible. But you've got a young fighter who, when his mandatory came up, which was Alexander Usyk, he went, that's my mandatory, that's who I've got to fight. He didn't go, you know what, that's a tough fight, I'll bin that belt off, because it doesn't matter, I've got 3 others. Now we're in a situation where he's got a rematch, and if he swerves the rematch, he's a coward, and if he takes the rematch, maybe he's a bit silly because he hasn't had a chance to gel with his new trainer. I've had so many conversations with AJ, and not once, even when he was going to get paid to step aside, did he want to step aside? Now he's not getting paid to step aside. He definitely ain't stepping aside. All he wants to do is fight Alexander Usyk. So, yes, is the answer to your question. All of those things, gelling with a new trainer, doing this, doing that, of course, that would be beneficial. But we don't live in a perfect world. I'd rather give him the credit to say, wow, he's going to fight Usyk again straight off the bat. Because there's other people that won't fight Alexander Usyk. So, yes, there's always a more ideal scenario or situation. But he's ready, he's up for it, and he believes he can win the fight, and I do as well.
When you analyse what course of action to take as a promoter, are you able to detach yourself, because obviously AJ's your friend as well, can you detach yourself and analyse it coldly and look at what is his chances of beating him? Because I know that there's a lot of talk about just stick it on Usyk.
No, it's not that easy, but he can beat him. He can definitely beat him. No, Anthony is a sensational puncher, he's a great athlete, he's improving all the time as a fighter. He boxed the wrong fight, but you're quite right, it's not just as easy as just stick it on him and you'll knock him out. But you've got to be more aggressive, of course you have. But Usyk is the favourite in this fight. There's no doubt after that first fight. But Anthony has every chance to win this fight, and I believe he'll get it right.
So what do you consider the more damaging thing long term? A second conclusive defeat to Usyk, or foregoing it, getting criticised in the meantime?
But it's not. But it doesn't matter what's sensible, what's not. AJ is the boss. You can't tell this man who is a winner, right? Give up your shot at the world heavyweight title, have a few low-key fights, and hopefully in a year or two you'll get another shot. He just goes, no. I've shared 12 rounds with him. I know I can beat him. Let me fight him again. If you get beat, you get beat. It's sport. But I don't want to. He couldn't walk down the street ducking this fight. You know what I mean?
I hear that, but if you remember 5 years ago, Canelo ducked Triple G the first time the WBC made him mandatory, but it's forgotten about now. So in the long term,
but look,
do people remember?
history is history. People's opinions are people's opinions. Ultimately, it's down to Anthony Joshua. We sit there as a team and we say this: can you beat Alexander Usyk? Yes, I can. Fucking let's do it. Right? It's this fight game. Like, it's a fight at the end of the day. If you don't win, you don't win. But what he's not prepared, it's very difficult to get a shot at the world heavyweight title. People will freeze you out and people will make sure you never get a chance again. It's a dirty, horrible sport. You've got a contract to fight for the unified world heavyweight title for a lot of money.
But if you look at like your and AJ's rivals, they do that. They keep their powder dry.
Yeah,
you look at how many times.
But it's fucking boring. We're not here to keep our powder dry. We're not here to swerve challenges. He's here to win. He's here to create legacy. He's a throwback fighter. He wants to fight the best fighters. He wants to test himself. He's not interested in fighting a warm-up fight against Manuel Char or Sefer Seferi or Francisco Pianetta or Tom Schwartz. He'd laugh at that suggestion. So all these questions, just give him credit and just say, fuck me, you're a proper fighter. You're going to fight Usyk again. Like when he boxed Ruiz, right? He got dropped, 5 times? Oh, you can't fight Ruiz again. You need your confidence back. And then beats Ruiz and goes, well, obviously he was going to rematch Ruiz. He's much better than Ruiz. Like, that was a more devastating defeat. Now, the Usyk one, he got outboxed. Right? He got beaten by the better fighter. But the Ruiz one was humiliating. And he just dusted himself down, came back, got the game plan right, won the fight. Let him try and do it again. No, it's amazing that people want to pick holes in, oh yeah, but wouldn't it make more sense? You imagine he come out now and went, right, basically, it's more sensible for me to swerve the Usyk fight and have a couple of easy ones. In career over, reputation over. I know you can come back and get, but to him, to the individual, he don't want warm-ups. He wants the challenge. Throw him back into the fire. That's what he's telling us. And it's not like he can't win this fight. He can win this fight. But he's up against maybe the best heavyweight in the world. Maybe.
Absolutely. Well, as you said, he is the boss, so
yeah, absolutely.
He's going to make his choice.
And by the way, there was an argument that I had when we had Step Aside that this might be a sensible thing to do. And the only reason he entertained that discussion is because I felt like he should listen to it. But at no point during that discussion was he ever happy, really, to discuss it. It took me to say, listen, mate, you know, you're going to get much more money to fight the winner. You're going to get Step Aside. You're going to get a chance to fight someone. And it was like, I just want to fight Usyk. Why can't you let me fight Usyk? And in the end, it's like, you can. You know, it's like, oh, they wanted more money. I was trying to find a way to convince AJ to not fight Usyk and to take this step aside. And the only way to do that was to try and get more money, or and then Fury wouldn't fight Usyk off the bat. He wanted a warm-up fight, and then AJ went, no chance, because I don't trust you. So he deserves respect.
All right. Well, we've got AJ Usyk 2 to look forward to. Just want to quickly ask you about a couple of other fighters. Of course, at the weekend we saw probably a sad end to an era, Amir Khan. I think it's fair to say he wouldn't have given Conor Benn much other than a payday.
No, but he deserves a lot of respect, because Amir, saying a fighter's shot can sometimes be a little bit disrespectful, but he knows, and this is what I said in the build-up. I watched him in training camp. You could tell Amir Khan was shot, he knew, but he never stopped trying to win. So he deserves massive credit. Kell Brook, we don't know if it was a renaissance of Kell Brook or just against a fighter that didn't have it anymore. I think maybe a bit of both. Kell trained really hard for that fight, and I thought he looked great. So, Amir will retire, and Kell may retire, or he may fight Conor Benn, or he might fight Chris Eubank. We'll see.
Would you like to do Brook v Benn as a stadium fight in the summer?
Yeah, it's a big fight. I mean, I like it at the O2 as well. I like it. We've done a fight at Sheffield United before. We could do a fight in London as well. It's a really good fight. Really good fight. We'll announce Conor Benn's next fight on Sunday. And hopefully we can get the Kell Brook fight made.
Just on Conor Benn, has he been painted into a corner somewhat?
Painted into a corner?
In the sense that, because you said he's sort of on the verge of a world title shot later this year, it's difficult for you to get the right opponents now, because they're going to know what you're trying to do with him, which means they're going to want to be overpaid.
Yeah, everyone wants to be overpaid. It's a state of boxing at the moment, which is great for the fighters. But with Conor, we just have to keep increasing the level of opposition, which we've been doing consistently. Going from Vargas to Granados, or Formella to Vargas to Granados to Algieri to maybe Van Heerden or wherever it will be. And I think his development's great. But sooner or later he's going to have to jump in the deep end, but we'll make sure he's ready when he does.
Is it fair to say he's actually more like 2 years away from a world title shot? Not necessarily because of his level.
How he gets. I mean, look, you saw what he did against Algieri. Okay, Algieri. See what he does against Van Heerden. And then, Van Heerden's last fight was against Boots Ennis. All right, 18 months, whatever it was. But that was his last fight. That was Van Heerden's last fight. So, I'm thinking, if you stumble against Van Heerden, if you breeze through him and knock him spark out, then sooner or later the levels between Van Heerden and Terence Crawford, are huge. But there's not a lot in between. There are some, but this is about the development of a very, very good young fighter.
I'm thinking more because of the politics. You've got 3 of the 4 belts with the PBC. You know how much they like getting involved with you.
Yeah. So you get into a mandatory position. He's well ranked, top 5 with a few governing bodies. But I'm not bothered about, are we there yet? Do we have a shot? Let him develop, because he's getting better and better, and his star power is becoming brighter and brighter.
And just lastly, Andrade, just heard you lost the last bid. That aside, the guy can't catch a break, can he?
No, we'll see if Zach Parker's the fight. The problem is, it's not a big fight in America, that fight. No one knows who Zach Parker is. Probably a bigger fight here, but Demetrius would rather do that fight in America, and that's what our bid was related to. So we'll see if he wants to do the fight in the UK, but needs to move up from 160. So this could be the right opportunity for him to do that.
But even beating Parker doesn't necessarily get him any closer to a big fight, does it?
That's why another reason we have to see if we're actually going to take that fight. But if we don't have any other moves or options, then why not?
Would you rather that than the Alim Khanoli fight at middleweight?
Yeah, that's it's not that that's a terrible fight. It's just that he's getting harder and harder for Demetrius to keep making middleweight, and there's another fight that's not overly attractive to Demetrius.
Oh, well, I guess he's just one of those fighters that has to just keep plugging away.
Absolutely.
Eddie, thanks for your time.
No worries. Thank you.
Enjoy the video. Feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and share. As always, if you want to support us to the next level, head over to the patreon.com/ThaBoxingVoice. We have tons of exclusive from Border Wars, Entitled, betting shows, the list goes on and on and on. But in addition to that, if you guys have questions for fighters, trainers, and promoters, this is where you can submit them. We will run out, get these questions answered, and put it back on the show just for you guys. Appreciate it. Peace.